have any thoughts?
Not me. I'll accept the Mycenae species.
Yeah. It was really pretty though.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next sample. So this is one that Don sent over, Panaeolus phoenicii, if that's how you pronounce it, that's how I pronounce it.
Panaeolus phoenicii.
Yeah, that's a smaller, younger specimen, I think, than I usually find. Are they usually? I mean, I see these a lot in in grass, just there in my yard or in the neighborhood. Is this? I don't think I usually see them clustered together like this. Is that something you've seen often, Don or Mark?
I wouldn't say often, but I think occasionally. I think these are just very fresh and very wet. I let one of those specimens dry out and it turned brown like you'd expect.
Don, we hear you now through the computer.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my camera microphone now. How's that?
Well, that's great. All right, so yeah, so those are those all growing out of the same little cluster of stem there?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't seen that before myself. And then you also sent in this. Tell us about this agaricus, Don.
Those are the ones that have been growing in my backyard for 10 or 15 years, and Mark and Stephanie have both been out here and looked at them. But I think I finally concluded that they are, in fact, xanthodermis because of yellow staining. And this particular one really came out yellow on the stem base.
I believe you said in the past that they haven't been very, I mean, maybe a little bit staining, but not very much. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. And that's been my problem, that I haven't been able to really decide what they are because of that. There is no smell that I can detect to them whatsoever. And I've fried them up and eaten them, and there's no taste to them whatsoever.
Well, I guess if you're Don Johnson, you can eat xanthodermis without worrying. You've got an iron stomach.
No problem whatsoever.
Not necessarily recommended for most people to eat the Agaricus xanthodermis there.
No, not recommended.
All right, these are a couple of Gyromitra perlatum that I found the other day. This is the underside. These are we found these yesterday up in the Uintas. These are very common in the Uintas and just in montane forested areas in general. Probably saw a couple of dozen of these. Sometimes they're not quite this wrinkled. A lot of times they're flatter than this. But anywhere from dime size to up to about this big, I typically see. But these are considered edible, or at least non-poisonous. I haven't eaten them myself, but I believe you have, Don. So we found a few of those. Let's see the next one here. This one I believe is I don't know how you pronounce it, Calvatia humosa. I have this is a different specimen just a few feet away. Kind of this smoky grayish peridium. The outside is just a puffball, and of course, if you open them up, this one was not fresh enough. Or not very fresh. It's already starting to sporulate quite a bit there. But that really thick peridium, that skin around it is center typical of humosa. Usually when I get those, they're anywhere from a few millimeters to maybe even half a centimeter. These are about. I think I have this. Oh no, I have another specimen here. But yeah, where the outside, the peridium is just so thick. On this smaller specimen I've got here, You can see it's not quite as, I don't know if you can see that, not quite as thick, but it's still much thicker than if it were just kind of a skin. You know, that's a good 3 millimeters thick there. These I don't know if these are necessarily edible when they're fresh. Well, I mean, I think technically they're edible. I tried them once and it was just gross, so I don't think I'll ever try it again. Not very yummy. This next, so I submitted 5 mushrooms here. This next one, you can kind of see just where it is there. I really don't know what these are. I didn't have as much time to study it. We just picked these up last night or yesterday afternoon. I didn't have enough as much time to study it as I would have liked. It's one of the smaller, browner mushrooms that I just don't know, but I thought with the shape it might be distinguishable enough to be identifiable. Mark, Don, you guys have any ideas what that might be?
Is there any sign of a little cobwebby veil remain on that?
Cobwebby, like
Like a
cortina, maybe. I don't think so. And I have the drier specimens right here, but no, there's no ring zone that I was able to identify, and they haven't even had enough time. I didn't even get a spore print yet, but the gills at this point in this light are almost slightly pinkish tan. So I'm not sure. 3 gills.
I wonder about it at Grossaby. There's that genus of witch's cap, I think it's called, something like that. I don't have the book. Gotta go get it. Hang on.
Was they near the snow?
They were not under snow. I was up at Murdoch Basin, so there was not much snow around. There was probably snow last night, but it melted off, or a few days ago. But there were not snow banks nearby where these were growing. But there was snow not too long ago, so I don't know. I don't know. They are a little bit hygrothic.
Do you have a microscope you can use?
I do. It's in the other room.
Well, I mean, maybe not right this minute, but
Yeah.
let's see if the spores are angular. Maybe an entoloma.
I'm gonna
That's possible.
look at that.
The gills are a little bit pinkish.
A little bit, yeah. And they were not yesterday, but now after a night of being in a paper bag and drying a little bit, they're just slightly tinged pinkish. I don't know if that's from spores or just the lighting or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I'd have a look at those under a microscope. You know what you're looking for. They're little pentagons or hexagonal shaped spores. That'd clinch it, I think. But.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that. That's a good insight. So I have some more study to do on that. This one I just thought was kind of interesting and pretty. At first I didn't know what it was, and then I realized, oh, that's Cortinarius. I saw this here, and at first I thought that was an annulus of some sort, and I guess of some sort it might be just where they, not really an annulus, but where the caps came out, where they were touching the stem earlier. But and I saw the cortina, so Cortinarius of some sort. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't think I've ever identified any Cortinarius to species. I remember looking, the first time I looked for a Cortinarius, I was like, oh, let me look this up. And I pull up this, this thing with 300 some odd Cortinarius species. And like, the first questions in it are requiring microscopic analysis that I didn't have the skill to do and probably still don't. So
I've identified about a half a dozen or maybe 8 of them, and it's not worth it.
So, and then this one, I didn't think at first, but now I'm wondering, now that I have it overnight and the others have dried a little bit, I'm almost wondering if it's the same species actually. It was, but quite a bit more dried out. The cap is, I don't know, it might not be the same species because this one I just showed you is drying out, and it's not, but it's still a little bit glossy on the cap. This one right here that we have.
You're holding a specimen of that?
Yes.
Can you see the underside again?
Oh. Somebody here is. Let's see if I can figure out. Maybe it's
Narrate or something. Those you tried peeling the gills away from the cap?
Adam, will you mute everyone except Mark?
I'm trying to figure out. Well, I'm actually wondering if it's Mark that, because let's see. Everybody's muted except Mark. I think it's Mark's phone that's getting that.
It looks like Gene's contact is showing audio.
There we go. Okay, it was Gene. Sorry. There we go. Gene, if you need us to unmute you, we'll unmute you.
Did you see some young ones? You
Flashes.
had some small ones?
This was the only one that we had here. This was the only one that was in the area. That was the only one I saw.
And is the cap margin, was it turned in? Is it sort of involute? It sort of looks like the Pactolus or something to me.
It is turned in a little bit right now. It was not, but I mean, partly that's because it's drying. I mean, you can zoom in on this. There's a little bit of interned edge there, I think, but not much. It's just barely turned in there.
Let me look something up just quick.
But I don't see any Cortina on this one after all. I was just wondering. It has that same yellowish tinge.
That's kind of interesting. Any stains on the gills?
No.
From bruising?
There were not. Let me see right now if it stains at all. It still is. I mean, it was fresh last night. It's still pretty moist. I don't know if I'll see any staining, but we can see.
Did you get a spore print on that, Adam?
I didn't yet. No, I'm remiss in my study my documentation responsibilities. I'm sorry.
Well, when you only have one mushroom, it's kind of difficult, but yeah.
Yeah. It might be staining. Mark, I do think it's staining a little bit reddish purple.
On the gills?
On the gills. Well, that may just be bruising. But yeah, there's definitely, when when I crush the gills a little bit, they turn kind of a pale purple gills.
Well, that's worth looking into. It sort of has the stature and kind of appearance of Paxillus that I've seen, except that the gills on Paxillus are usually a little bit, they're either attached or a little decurrent.
Yeah, these are definitely free.
Yeah.
Or notched, at least.
Yeah, they're oh, I forget if it's adnate or adnext. They are attached about 2 millimeters down, but then they come away. Maybe I can show you this here.
Well, no other ideas for me on that.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's how the gills are. That's about how much the gills are touching. So they're nearly free, but not quite. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to break out the microscope on that one too, maybe. All right, let's move on to the next ones here. Let's see, Ed's. Ed, let me ask you to unmute there. Tell us about these, Ed.
So I was up in Murdoch Basin around Lost Lake, Lily Lake, probably at about almost 10,000 feet. You can see there's a little bit of snow patchy around. I think there's some in the background there. From what, Wednesday? So I'm guessing it's some kind of like hygroside, maybe, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Clitosabe.
Yeah, these look to me like Clitosabe glacialis.
No, but it's missing the little rhizomorphs. Have you tried looking at Melanoleuca?
I did not. Which one?
Melanoleuca. Gosh, it looks like.
Does glacialis have rhizomorphs on it?
It's got the white mycelium around the growth around the base.
Yeah,
That's glacialis.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Alberiza. I'm mistaken there.
Okay, yeah. And it's got that whitish bloom on it that for me is the. So a lot of times I see these things and I say, oh, that maybe is Clitosabe glacialis. Oh, maybe that's glacialis. I see a lot of stuff that I think is glacialis, but a lot of times that bloom isn't there, and I realize that can get washed off. But with it there, that for me clinches it. I think it's glacialis, and it has that. And a lot of times there's a little mycelial matting at the base of the.
Yes, there almost always is with glacialis.
Or glace, don't they get a grayish color too to them also sometimes, or no?
But that's because of the bloom on the surface. It looks gray.
Okay, right on.
When you wash that off, it always looks brownish. Like this.
And if they're really impressed with you, they look almost silvery.
Yeah, that's the bloom. These are totally washed off from the recent snow, I'm sure.
Yeah. Interestingly, I didn't see any Clitosabe glacialis yesterday while I was up there, I think. I saw a couple that might have been, but I'm not sure.
There was a spot, I mean, there were just a ton of them. You know, kind of the classic, you see one and then like all the rest of them magically appear and you can see them all.
Yeah. Well, those are all of the submissions we received. Should we go, well, let's see, now that Mark's back, let's just go look at that possible mycena back at the beginning here. that we wanted your take on. These here, any thoughts on these, Mark? Ashley was
Not my spoon.
Ashley was thinking that they in the Mushrooms of Colorado book, she thought it looked a lot like the bleeding mycena, but they didn't notice any bleeding.
That mycena, what is that, hematopus or something, has a really much more delicate stem, almost a little bit translucent, and then, yeah, if you pinch it and give it a squeeze, the red liquid comes out. These don't really look anything like that to me. They don't look like mycenas to me.
You ever found bleeding mycena in Utah, Mark?
Yes, a couple of times.
Okay,
Once in the Uintas once, and up at East Canyon once.
cool.
But you don't think these are even mycena?
No. I mean, just off the top of my head, I would say not. So is it just in conifer duff there? Receding snow?
In one of the pictures, it looks like they're on, I think it's the one after this, it looks like they're on a little branch. But I don't remember because I just didn't pay attention to this at the time, figuring I'd never be able to identify it.
And
But then I got really curious about it because it was so the conical shape and the coloring. But then we kind of talked about how the coloring's probably because it's drying out. The coloring meaning like the darker edges.
any idea on a spore color?
No, and I also didn't take a spore print, so pretty unlikely that I will ever ID it. Unless I find more.
I don't know if I had my microphone working when we were looking at this earlier, but the stem reminds me of mycena, sorry. Just kind of contorted and long and thin. Mycena over Holtzii is a good example of that. This may not be over Holtzii, but I suspect in the Mycena family or genus.
My impression is that it's way too robust to be mycena.
It's too what?
He said it's
Too
robust.
robust.
I'm sorry.
I mean, over Holtzii is about the most robust mycena that we ever see. Is that another picture of the same thing?
No, this is a different specimen from a different person, but we didn't identify this one either.
I thought they were all the same. I think they're the same species.
I thought they were the same too, but these two pictures of the bigger ones are from a Tyson Hobbs on Facebook.
What's up with the little speckly business? Is that pollen grains or something? Or?
Pollen.
Uh-huh.
And those stipes are really fat, so I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, we've gone through all of the specimens that were submitted by email. Does anybody have anything else that they want to show, or any questions or comments or requests? Oh, wow. Where'd you find that, Mark?
Got that. It's a great big robust agaricus by Torcas, probably, in our lawn this morning. We've been testing out a new irrigation pump. Sort of flooded the lawn a couple of times in the last week. And these have come up out there pushing, you know, they're hard to see. They just form humps in the ground. They're out there. It's very solid, almost tough. No bugs. So Haven't seen any. I did see some termites 2 days ago, fresh. On a,
Can the rest
probably
of
an
us
elm.
see that?
So, what's that?
Can the rest of us see that? I'm still looking at one of Ashley's photos.
Oh,
Oh yeah, sorry. Here, let me hold on. Let me stop that and stop like that. There we go.
so they're all about this. 4 or 5 of them out there now. They're all about this size, about, I don't know, 6 ounces or something. A pound.
What do they taste like, Mark?
He
Never
hasn't
mind.
eaten any yet. I don't think Mark usually eats the agaricus from his yard.
It tastes like a mushroom. No, it's very flavorful. Raw. Maybe a little stronger than a raw agaricus that you get at the grocery store, but
Yeah.
perfectly good. Mushroomy.
Those are good. You said you have a whole yard full of those then?
Not a yard full, about a half a dozen. We might have a yard full, because it seems to be their appearance, I think, is related to flooding with irrigation water a few days ago, about a week ago. So we might see more.
Yeah, you could go excavate your whole yard and probably get a couple dozen more, right?
Well, it's nice because I don't see any sign of any bugs in it, and that's kind of unusual. 'Cause we get what I think is probably Bisporus down in the horse corral, and they're invariably full of bugs. By the time you see them, there's just nothing but a shell with bugs inside. But these are different that way.
Yeah, that divot on the top, right? Isn't that pretty typical of Bitorcus?
I don't know. The caps are all the ones that I can see out there are a little bit irregular in one way or another. I think they're a little bit distorted from pushing up through it's really hard packed ground out there. It's got some pasture grass and it's clay, and there are some roots and things in there. And so they're kind of pushing up around that, and they're not, none of them are, win any beauty pageants. So, but I don't know if that's
that one again.
if that's characteristic of Bitorcus or not.
No. Will you show us that one again? And I'd like to see the ring on it as well. So we talk about this double flaring ring as being typical, right? I didn't see anything there.
It's not very evident. It's kind of pressed up against the stem, and you can't see it at all on the crookedy side, but that's all that you can. That's all you can really see of it here.
It's a good-looking mushroom. Have some soup.
Yeah, there's enough for a batch.
Good. Any other finds or specimens or questions? Anybody? I think last time we went over by a good half hour. It was a long discussion. This time it's not even 1 o'clock yet, so that's maybe we'll end a little bit early.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
any.
they have more mushrooms.
Go ahead, Mark.
Saying there are more mushrooms this time too.
I haven't seen any gyromitra except the perlata.
Yeah, well, I guess I could show you the picture of what we had. Well, I mean, it's from last week. There's no reason I can't show you that, right?
Ashley had a bunch of photos there that she posted in Facebook.
Yeah, Don took us up to the place where we could see Esculenta, and was perfect timing. I didn't even see any old ones. They were all just perfect esculenta.
Gyromitra esculenta?
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
That's neat. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen an esculenta in person, but we had. So I took my kids up last week, and we. Is that showing up there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we found, they were all over. We found, as you can see, there's 5 there on the ground. Got a whole passel of them. Brought them home, and actually, I'll tell you an interesting story. So we brought these home, and of course they are edible. They need to be cooked sufficiently. I think they've been proven to have gyromitrin, or at least some of the hydrazines, though not very much, but some. Well, we brought these home, and I gave some to a neighbor of mine that had given me a plate full of fresh honeycomb. So I took the plate back over with some of these and told them, cook them well and make sure they're well cooked before you eat them. Well, one of the neighbor kids, he's 14. He was over and talking to Amy, who's in this picture, and she was telling him, well, yeah, we cook these up and eat them. They have to be cooked. Now, the problem is their family speaks Swahili, and they don't speak English very well. And he was looking at it, and before she could stop him, he just took a bite of it. And she said, no, you can't, don't eat it. And he said, no, it's good. And he popped the rest of it in his mouth. So we were concerned, ended up calling the poison control and getting a Swahili interpreter on to talk to their family, and we ended up taking him up to the hospital and they observed him. He did get ill, but they kept him there for about 24 hours and then brought him home. But I was very concerned. Sorry?
Do you know if they did anything for him, or did they just give him activated charcoal or anything, or any treatment, or they just watched him and he was okay?
I think they just watched him. So what I've been able to understand from a gyromitrin poisoning, a low level gyromitrin poisoning, is mostly just supportive. They just monitor, and as long as he doesn't have seizures, then it's probably fine. In this case, he threw up. I think it wasn't too bad, and within 24 hours they said, okay, he's good to go home. If it had been esculenta, it would have been a different story, I'm sure. But
how much did he eat?
He ate about a golf ball sized mushroom. So
they're friends of yours?
Our neighbors, yeah.
Are they still your friends?
Well, yeah, and that's a good question. And we had them over. In fact, they're from Congo, and it was the next day they brought somebody over, a friend of theirs who was concerned, and she spoke English and Swahili, so she was able to, and she wanted to ask us about what happened, because she was afraid, with all the racial tension and everything going on, that from what she was hearing, she was afraid that our kids had gone over there to try to poison their family because they're black or something. And I was like, no. And so after explaining the situation, she was very much appeased. But it was quite concerning, and it just reinforced to me that if I have mushrooms around that aren't ready to be eaten, they need to be locked up or something. Because this wasn't a case where we gave it to him. He came over and I don't know, and there's just the the language barrier. So I have started studying Swahili again. So I'm quite seriously, I'm concerned about the language barrier, and I was very concerned about that situation. But so far, it's all turned out okay. I mean, we'll see. But
Wow.
Good to hear that you've been friends with the neighbors, Adam.
yeah. So I think we actually do have some Marasmius aureates growing around the corner. I think I'm gonna go collect some of those and take them some and say, here's some that you can eat. And, you know.
Adam,
See if they believe you.
Right.
I'd like to get a photo of the Gyromitra esculenta up. You don't have one there anywhere? I have some.
No, I saw one that you had that you shared on Facebook. Let me.
Ashley had one of the two side by side.
Yeah, it's probably faster just to go to Facebook, but
Yeah.
Rather than emailing them. I thought someone else would get on and post it out there. I thought you were going to do it then. Oh, yeah, there's a lot on there on the Mushrooms of Utah group.
Yeah, there's let's see if I can share this. Here was Don's picture.
There we go. Yeah, that's esculenta.
Yeah. And I've never seen, so I still remember my very first time with the Mushroom Society. I followed Mark around like a little puppy dog, following in his footsteps and him showing me all these things. And we did find a Gyromitra infula that day, and I still remember that. And that's, I think the half dozen mushrooms he identified for me that day stuck in my mind, and I could recognize them almost anywhere now. But I'd never seen an esculenta in person. But is that esculenta there on the right?
Yes, that's it.
And then that's a Montana.
Yeah, the stem on the esculenta there is a little bit contorted. It's just kind of bent off to the side, but that's what it is. And that was, you go back to the spores, that's spores of Gyromitra montana with one large central oil droplet and smaller ones on each side of it, where the esculenta has two about the same size oil droplets in each spore.
As opposed to. Yeah.
But I wasn't able to get any spores from the esculenta that I brought home, but I couldn't find one in 3 specimens.
Huh. All right. Well,